Everyone. I am Kelcey Lemon, Technical Marketing Manager for the VCF Division at Broadcom, and I'm based out of our Atlanta office. I'm remote, and joining me today are my colleagues Dave Overbeek and Abhijit Trumbull, and they're going to be assisting with some of the Q&A today as well. And so, today, we're here to really sort of just to demonstrate, how you can actually operationalize, VCF operations after you've installed and configured it, specifically around, monitoring VCF health, which basically sort of consists of ensuring that the components and the infrastructure, right, that make up that cloud, as well as the workloads and the applications that are running on it, that they're stable, secure, and resilient. I'm going to demonstrate how VCF operations, its full stack visibility provides a unified view of your infrastructure, as well as the applications that are running on them, right? And then I'm going to actually segue into how VCF operations can help you address capacity shortfalls, based off of historical resource use and real-time predictive analytics, right? And even help you identify, underutilized resources or unused resources like those powered off VMs or those idle VMs, those old snapshots and those orphan disks, that can actually be reclaimed. And if time permitting, I'm going to demonstrate how VCF operations can actually help you streamline operating costs and actually avoid, high resource use, across these different lines of businesses that you may be interacting with. Operations can help you track things like total cost of ownership, showback, and even some of its chargeback capabilities. And so with that, let's just take a look at how VCF operations can help ensure that your cloud is healthy, starting with how VCF operations provides that full stack visibility and even application monitoring, right? And so, right out of the gate, VCF operations, its overview page, it gives you a summary of your entire estate at a glance. I can get visibility into where my VCF deployments are running. I can see my inventory. I can even get a quick look at my diagnostic findings, broken down by severity so that I can start remediation planning. I can even see how my configurations have drifted into a non-compliant state that would require my attention. As well as get an overview of any certificates that might have expired or are on the verge of expiring, right? And, as I scroll down, I can get answers to questions related to my resources, and how they're performing, such as, what's my overall capacity for CPU, memory, and even disk space? Do I need to fine tune anything? Are there any resources that are in danger of running out of space or capacity? And if so, which ones actually require my immediate attention? One of the things that I wanted to sort of circle back on is this whole idea around the diagnostic findings and the config drifts. Those are relatively new features that came out earlier this year, where we've actually taken some disparate sort of proactive and reactive diagnostic tools, and we've actually sort of integrated them into that single user interface. And then also with the config drifts, that's also relatively new as well. That actually requires vCenter 8U3. And so just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of that those are two relatively new features that you can use to be even more proactive in terms of just being able to do remediation planning and things along those lines. And one of the things is that VCF operations, that it will also notify me, like I said, of any issues in the form of these alerts, right, that are present in my environment. Again, they're based on severity, and they can provide me an overview of things related to cost, like, my total cost of ownership, any savings that have been realized as a result of reclaiming capacity, as well as potential saving opportunities that could be realized if I were to delete old snapshots, as well as powered off VMs and idle VMs and et cetera. And then, finally, right, with VCF operations, it'll also let me know how compliant my infrastructure is with regard to, ESG initiatives and sustainability, right? Where I can get my green score based off of power consumption and carbon footprint levels, as well as to sort of see, how secure and how compliant my environment is sort of measuring up against, various industry standards such as HIPAA, CIS, and et cetera. And then, now that I've actually sort of, got the summary of my environment at a glance and all the things that require my attention, I can actually start to take action on a lot of those things with my Launchpad page here. So as you can see here, this is basically my one-stop shop for all of my day two workflows. I can look at things like my inventory, I can look at my product versions, I can go back and check my SDDC manager health. Again, I can check capacity, check my workload in terms of how my hosts are performing, my VMs, and et cetera. And so this is that one-stop shop where you can go and you can access all of those day two workflows. So again, that's part of that unified console experience that I'm talking about here. I can even go to this page to, determine the overall health of, the various components of my infrastructure and my appliances. And so let's just go ahead and do that by just going into my VCF operations. And when I go here, I can immediately get answers to questions like, is my VCF deployment, consisting of NSX, vSAN, vCenters, hosts, and et cetera, is it running? And if so, is it healthy? And so, we can actually find out, right? So looking specifically at my, management domain here, I can see the availability of things like my appliances, my VMs, my services, as well as the expiration status of passwords and search, right? So there's a lot of great insight here, and all of this, like I said, is actually on the operations level, but I can actually go deeper and look at how the health of any of my VCF components are factoring in as well.
Sorry, Kelcey, sorry to interrupt, but at the top left there, it says that this is deprecated. Is that
Yes.
just the name, or is it what?
Okay, good question. So what's basically happening is that the team right now, we're consolidating a lot of dashboards and moving them over. So it's still here, but what's going to happen is that in the future, moving forward, you're going to see new and improved dashboards and pages that's going to show the same data. But in the interest of time, I guess what's happening right now is that we're sort of in the process of updating them. And so still here, but they're going to be improved in future releases. So you're not losing functionality if that's what you're worried about.
No, it's okay. I was just wondering why we're seeing
it's a
thing. Do you have the new thing yet, or is it so that's still coming?
It's still coming. Correct.
Okay.
Is this still ARIA Operations?
ARIA Operations.
Okay.
Correct.
Is there a name change ahead that we don't know about yet?
You know what? Only time will tell. You know what? Right now it's area operations, but it is a key component of VCF operations moving forward. And so area operations 8.18, which is what you're looking at right here, right now, is actually a component of VCF 5.2.
Thank you, Kelcey.
All right. And so let's just talk about the SDDC manager, right? So like I said, if I'm having a problem with my SDDC manager, I could use this dashboard here and I can troubleshoot issues related to CPU and memory performance, capacity, configurations, disk space utilization, look at my compliances and all that types of things. So there's a lot of great information here. And so as you can see here from the dashboard, I can see my compliance levels. I can see the percentages in terms of my disk space utilization. So again, there's a lot of rich data here that VCF operations sort of takes into consideration so that you can be aware of when things are performing well. And so as you can see here, a lot of green lights, things are running smoothly here. Nothing's in danger of breaking down, no routers or anything like that. So we're good to go. And then, another very important, component of this obviously is, the vCenters, right? And of course, with this, I can look at how things are performing. I can see their health with respect to things like CPU and memory and disk space. I can see all the different workload patterns. I can see latency. I can see all the potential contention issues as well. So again, a lot of this information from all these different endpoints are being consolidated here in this unified single source of truth where you can see everything again in this one centralized location. And so far, right?
Is this on a domain basis? So this is like one of the VI domains, or is this a management domain, or is this across multiple domains?
Management.
Yeah, but just to add here, so basically you see the management domain as well as the workload domain for one of the VCF stack that we have deployed. So as you have multiple workload domain, it's going to show you
Yep.
that as well.
All right. So, so far, we've looked at how VCF operations can, help monitor, the health of your VCs, the VCF components, right? But it can also help you examine things on an infrastructure level as well, right? So I can actually see how well my hosts are performing, and as I sort of go through this and I'm clicking through each of these hosts, I can get a breakdown. I can actually see things like my top 5 hosts, that are using the most memory, the most CPU and the most storage, and I can even see the ones that has the most memory contention here. And so again, lots of great information, whether you're on the workload or the management domain, all this information here is consolidated in a single centralized user interface here. And then, I can even get deeper insight on the storage level as well, right? So with the vSAN health dashboard, I can monitor the status of my vSAN clusters. I can diagnose issues and I can even troubleshoot problems on that storage level, right? So this dashboard, it displays all of my critical alerts that may need my immediate attention. And then if I were to select any of these vSAN clusters, right, I can get information again around alerts. I can see the capacity summary. I can see things like the summary, including things like use and the remaining capacity. I can see that very, very awesome health score. And I can even see how the health is actually trending over time. And so, at this point, right, we've looked at the cloud itself and it's healthy. We've looked at some of the components of the cloud. They're also healthy. We've looked at some of the infrastructure pieces of that cloud and they all look good. But what about my workloads and the applications that I'm running, right? And so, with this particular workload VM performance dashboard, I can see how the VMs are performing with regard to, again, CPU and memory. I can actually go out here and I can look at the topology of my VMs in relation to that workload domain in this particular case. And I can also, again, I can see, the top 5 lists for my VMs for things around CPU workload, memory workload, and even that host memory workload for all the different VMs in my environment here in this particular case. And I can also leverage the vSphere Daily Check tool, to review the health and performance of my vSphere, clusters. This dashboard, it focuses on these daily activities here where I can see all the different alerts and all the different changes in my environment based off of these clusters, right? And I can even, leverage this dashboard to see again where I'm experiencing CPU contention, memory contention, as well as any of the latency issues for each of my VMs as well. All right. Now, let's just wrap up this section by looking at a business application, right? And so, from a topology sort of point of view, we can see a lot of things, right? We can see this database tier, it's running Kubernetes, right? And there's also this storage tier as well, right? And I can even drill out for even more level of detail, and I can get, relevant metrics for any of the component of this application here. I can scroll out and I can see that it's a collection of SQL databases, and I can see the application's topology here. So this actually sort of harkens back to an earlier demo where you saw that electronic store here. So this is the application. Here's the hierarchy or the topology and everything that's it's consisting of here. And, these applications, right, they're actually being monitored, with a combination of management packs and telegraph agents, which are also included in VCF operations, just right out of the box, right? And so here in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the Microsoft SQL Server Management Pack so I can get insights on a database level. And so when I select a query, I can see not only what's being queried, but I can also get other, relevant information such as average execution time, as well as read-write operations to really sort of help me troubleshoot, and really just diagnose any issue, just all the way down to the database level itself here. So again, I can see the queries, I can get all that great information here. So if I need to remediate or troubleshoot or diagnose, I can go here and I can get all that great information here again in that single source of truth, that user unified interface, so to speak. All right, so now let's just talk about capacity, right? Obviously, when it comes to capacity planning, right? The biggest challenge, for most issues is just really avoiding just over provisioning, right? Or just underutilizing their resources, and obviously that results in higher operating costs. And this is where, VCF Operations can help. It's got a capacity engine that does a great job of analyzing your environment's historical data. It actually predicts using predictive analytics here, future resource demands, and it even provides recommendations for capacity, right? And so, like its health monitoring tools, right? VCF Operations just provides a lot of useful out of the box, demand and utilization metrics that really provide great insight into capacity here. So we're going to take a look at this and just jump straight into a demo. So like on the capacity overview page, right? So let me just go ahead and go here. You're going to see all the clusters that are present in your environment. You're going to see the data center. You're going to see their capacity status. This green status here sort of represents that the cluster has the required capacity. Of course, right, if you don't have enough capacity, you're going to see a big red thing factored into that donut, right? But then there's also the optimization recommendation widget here, that shows the monthly cost. You can actually reduce, if you reclaim available resources. And we're going to look at that reclaim process again a little bit later in the demo here. So again, lots of great insights, lots of great information. And as I go to the next piece here, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is really around this analytics, this predictive AI ML-driven capacity engine here.
Kelcey, do you have the ability to go backwards on this real quickly?
Yeah, what do you need?
Can you go back, I think, one sort of page on this where you showed the map? I think it was your original, just a little bit backwards.
Yep. Was it this slide?
In the capacity, well, I'll ask the question, which is,
Sure.
there you go, right there. So this is my hobby horse that I'll sort of complain about, but why and you showed the map top left in the homepage as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that important to your users?
Right. So the infrastructure piece here on the top that you're referring to?
Right now that I'm looking at a screen, it has a United States of America map with two VM logos in San Francisco.
Right. So this is pretty much giving you a sort of a look at the whole environment, your whole infrastructure at a glance here, so you can have an environment that consists of vCenters, you can have VCF deployments, you can have various deployments. And so as you're looking at this, you're able to see, its location, and its location can actually help you with a lot of other sort of insights as well in terms of like, the energy, capacity usage, and even things around licensing as well. And so that's why it's really, really important to sort of be able to see the location of your different data centers and things like that. And that's pretty much at a high level.
All right, thank you.
So you had an issue with it here. So I wanted to sort of hear your take on it. Is there anything that we can improve on here?
Most of the vast majority of the world is a left to right, top to bottom view of the world, and expect the absolutely most important piece of information to be top left on a thing like this. So I don't know if the components are reorderable, then the admins can move, right? So a lot of dashboards have their widgets, and you can move them around.
Yeah, they're widget based, and you can move them around.
Right. If you can't move them around, then from an IT admin point of view, when I fire up my dashboard, the very first thing I want to know is what's on fire, right?
Okay, good point. So duly noted. So I actually misunderstood your question then. So now, I got better clarity now. So I see what you're saying in terms
Right.
of just being able to have that flexibility. Okay.
Right. So I mean, is this widget based? Is it reorderable and configurable, or it's fixed?
Not in this particular case. Dashboards have widgets that you can move around and control, but this particular page is static.
Right. So, again, like I said, I think most admins, the very first thing they want to know is what's on fire.
What's on fire?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Understood.
And then when you're doing, if you're looking at the dashboard to do an exploration into capacity planning, cost management, whatever, that's great. Right. But even this is the capacity planning. When I'm doing my capacity planning, what I want to know is the number one thing I want to know is where am I in trouble? Where am I at 80% or greater utilization of resources?
Let's talk about it.
Once I know that I have something that is in trouble, then the second order question is, where is it? What is it? What do I do about it?
Right.
But the first order question is, do I have a problem or not?
I can help you with that, or rather VCF Operations can help you with that. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. So, so as you can see.
So Kelcey, I just wanted to add a point here, so this is the default homepage that we have set, but the admins have the option to change this homepage. So you can, if you know the dashboard that will show the metrics, right? You can set that as a homepage. So next time when you log in, that will open up as the homepage for you.
Right. So one of the pieces that I was just referring to is this ability to add additional pages to the dash. So you have this overview page, and this is static, but then there's a launch pad, but then you can also add additional pages on the top as well. But in respect to this specific page, this page is static, but you can add additional pages as well that you can click on. And so as you can see here, I've got the launch pad, I got an overview, but I can also add additional pages here as well. Thanks for that option. All right, so let's talk about that question, right? You want to see what's on fire. You want to be able to see where it's at. You want to be able to sort of understand, the time remaining and how much time that you need to act to get capacity and things like that. And so let's talk about it, right? And so, here, you can see this time remaining widget, right? For each of the clusters, right? Over any selected time frame here. So we've got this left side that shows historical. We've got the right side that shows the future projection. And so in this particular scenario, right, I can see that I'm running out of disk space, and it's going to actually run out of 222 days on Valentine's Day, no less, right? And so, as for me, I haven't made any specific plans around Valentine's Day, but I know I don't want to be in the office putting out those fires, right? You talked about you want to see what's on fire. Well, I know that 222 days in the future, I don't want to be here. So let's just get in front of this, right? And just really understand, how projection is being calculated just by going into the capacity configuration settings, right? So let's just go ahead and take a look at that. And so, one of the first things is this whole idea around criticality threshold, right? And in layman's terms, right, this is basically asking, how much of a warning, do you need in order to get new capacity? If you had to order it, do you need a month? Do you need a quarter? Some businesses may need months, to get new capacity, to order new disk and new hardware, right? And so how much of a warning do you want in days in VCF Operations so that you can change this from a yellow warning status to that red critical status, so if the order process, takes a month, right, you may want to trigger that warning maybe in 35 days so that you can give yourself a little bit of wiggle room here. So I'm going to pause right here and see if this triggers anybody here, because I'm getting ready to talk about this next piece around risk level as well. All right, so let's talk about it, right? So the risk levels, right? And again, layman's terms, right? This is basically sort of just saying, how wide of a net, by these upper and lower boundaries here, that you want VCF Operations to cast, when it's considering or calculating this time remaining piece here. And so diving a little bit deeper, for production or mission critical workloads, right? You want to choose a conservative risk level because the time remaining metric is actually calculated, when the upper projected utilization boundary is hitting that usable capacity line here. So it's actually sort of casting a wider net. But then to go a little bit further down, right? But if you're running a test dev environment with non-critical workloads, you can cast a more narrow net with the aggressive risk level, right? Where the time remaining metric is actually calculated when the mean of that upper and that lower boundary, you know, is actually sort of projected out to that critical or that usable capacity line. So obviously, you know, the more narrow, the more aggressive the risk level, the more narrow that net's going to be, which actually sort of segues to that next point around peaks. And I'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to see if there's any questions around this piece here, because again, this is for a lot of people, this was sort of like a black box, if you will, you know, when it comes to VCF and how it predicts capacity. I just wanted to give a little bit of insight into what's happening with the capacity engine and the analytics that's taking place when it's factoring in, you know, the historical use, and it's taking that present time and then it's projecting it out into the future. So this is what's happening in the background, but it's also factoring in other things like business hours as well.
Hey, Kelcey, the prior slide didn't show a lot of this trending up like this. Is this an expansion of that time frame? So on the other one, so yeah, you're seeing more of the trend at the later portion of that then, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, correct. That's correct. So it can project out a year into the future. And so in this particular scenario, you know, when I was sort of creating this demo, I had less of a capacity because that was a brand new environment that I had built. So good question there. All right. And so let's talk about, you know, utilization peaks, right? You know, and so, you know, you got these momentary peaks, right? It could be like a momentary, like a reboot, or it could be something even more sustained. And if you want to factor those in, you have the ability to do that as well. And so as you go from aggressive to conservative, you know, that's going to also impact, you know, how peaks are factored in terms of capacity and time remaining. All right, so now let's just talk about reclamation, right? You know, so early in the demo, right, you know, I pointed out some of the opportunities to reduce waste, right, you know, by reclaiming some resources, right? So let's just take a look at how, you know, VCF operations can actually help with this by, let's just reclaim some VMs. Let's have some fun here, right? Take back some stuff. Booyah, right? So, you know, on the reclaim page, right, you know, you can see the monthly savings that you can achieve by reclaiming resources, right? You know, you can see the number of VMs and the orphan disks that you can reclaim. You can see the amount of reclaimable capacity for each resource type, right? You know, it gives you a visual representation of the capacity wastage and the total percentage that you can reclaim. You know, you can even set a duration time to sort of look for powered off and idle VMs. And so in this particular case, I could say, hey, you know, show me everything that's happened within the last 2 weeks. And I can even see a list of all the clusters and VMs and their total potential savings here broken down, right? And if I were to say, for example, like expand a cluster, you know, I can see the potential cost savings per month, right? As well as the reclaimed capacity for each of these resources, right? You know, I can choose to immediately delete a powered off VM, and I can exclude them for capacity considerations. And I can even schedule them to be deleted at a later date and time, right? You know, we've got, as you can see here, you know, similar operations for idle VMs and snapshots and orphan disks, right? And one of the things I want to point out is as I'm sort of scrolling through this stuff, you're going to see that I've got some very old hardware here. You know, I've got some snapshots that are over 300 days old and stuff like that. So, you know, shame on me, slap myself on the wrist and things like that. But what this is really great at, to sort of bring it all home, is that you can actually see all the resources that are reclaimable. You can see things that are powered off. You can see things that are idle. You can reclaim that capacity, improve or increase performance, and basically just sort of save money at a real high level here, right? And so that was one of the things I want to point out. And I wanted sort of to pause here, see if there's any questions about this, because again, you know, as you're reclaiming capacity, you know, capacity and costs are very much intertwined, right? You know, when you're reclaiming capacity, you're reducing costs and things along those lines.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Kelcey. So a lot of these things are regularly scheduled tasks that VI admins have to do. Is there something, and I use tasks as foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Ooh. Is there a scheduled task type solution that can do something like power off VMs and then remove it after a certain number of days?
Yeah, so you have the scheduling sort of functionality. but where you can do that. And Abhijit, if there's anything that you would like to elaborate on, I invite you to do it because I know this is something that's near and dear to your heart as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we have out of the box integration where you can schedule jobs. And again, VCF Operations supports integrations with the orchestrator, right? So if we have the VRO management pack integrated, we have access to so many workflows that you can trigger based on alerts as well. So we have two options here to address the requirement.
Thank you for that. All right. And so obviously, no demo on optimizing resources would be complete without discussing right sizing, right? And as you know, right sizing is those VMs. It's critical, to get that best performance out of your infrastructure, right? And so, you've got this oversized VM widget that actually shows the total number of VMs that are increased in this particular data center, as well as the allocated, CPU and memory. It shows the total number of vCPUs being recommended for reduction, as well as that recommended reduction in terms of the total amount of memory. And then, similarly, right, we've got this undersized VM widget that actually shows the total number of VMs that are undersized, again, in this particular data center. It's showing, the total number of vCPUs that are recommended for increase. And again, that total number for memory increase as well. I can even see like a list, of all the clusters along with the status of those VMs. And as I expand on each one, I can see more detail on each one of these VMs, right? And so to resize a VM, all I got to do, right, is just select the VM. And then I can actually see some of the right sizing rationale based on some of the policies that I define. And so, again, when VCF Operations is sort of giving you these right sizing recommendations, it actually will give you the rationale behind doing so here. So this is about just letting you understand and really just increasing your confidence in terms of what and how VCF Operations has arrived to that conclusion that, hey, this is undersized or oversized, and this is what the recommended or the most optimal state would be. And so it actually gives you that rationale here. At this particular point, we've actually sort of seen how VCF Operations in that console, this again provides this unified cloud experience where you can see everything in one particular user interface. You can see when things are on fire. You can be able to sort of go straight to it. If you want to make that a priority, you can customize your dashboard to see all of your different alerts. You can right size to save money. You can reclaim capacity as well. And all those different things has an impact on the resiliency and the stability of your environment.